I'm Tara Joseph with Asia Week Ahead and Peter Tallarsen of Breaking Views. And Peter, a Golden Week holiday ahead in China, 1 week off. But we've got a lot of political and economic questions lingering. Could we see some announcements?
Well, the Chinese leadership is not averse to springing the odd surprise in a holiday period. So,
what are we going to get? A political surprise or an economic stimulus package surprise?
Well, I think as far as investors are concerned, the latter is much more important. Obviously, people are still waiting for confirmation of the date of the party congress. But to be honest, as long as the party congress happens, preferably sometime in October, that will be okay. And the leadership happens, that will be okay. The much bigger question really is what kind of steps are the authorities prepared to take, especially in this sort of interim period, to stimulate the economy?
What do you think they would take? Are we going to see a rate cut or something of that nature?
Well, that would seem to be the most obvious thing to do. Rate cuts and also fiddling around with banks' reserve requirements are the two immediate things that are that the Chinese have at their disposal. Longer term, you're looking possibly at sort of kind of fiscal stimulus in terms of spending, maybe build some more infrastructure, helping exporters and things like that. And then long term, but this is not going to help in the immediate sense, is big changes to the makeup of China's financial markets, liberalizing interest rates, trying to stimulate consumption. But that's for the new leadership to deal with, and that won't happen in the short term.
But we have had this strange hiatus where people are waiting for political change. The economy is clearly slowing, and everyone's waiting for a response.
Yeah, not just people outside China waiting for responses. Also, it seems to be that companies inside China also waiting. What happened in 2008 was that when things slowed down, companies responded very quickly by closing factories, laying off workers and so forth. And then there was this big stimulus and everything picked up again. This time, what seems to be happening is that they're waiting for the government to respond. And they haven't closed their factories or laid off their workers, but we're seeing all these inventories build up. And the longer that goes on, the harder it will be for these companies to hold on.
While we're waiting, let's move down to Indonesia, where the change in commodities demand is starting to affect the very commodities-intensive economy there. Is Indonesia's boom done?
Not quite. I mean, I think what's happened is clearly that the big drivers of that boom, on the one hand, the coal, demand for coal, on the other hand, palm oil, both those are coming down in price quite a lot. It's actually not as big an impact as you might think if you look at the proportion of coal in Indonesian exports or as a proportion of Indonesian GDP. It's not huge, but it's kind of fueled the boom around it. So we've seen property and speculative booms in some of these mining towns, and sort of kind of monetary growth. So the question really is, to what extent does that slowdown then affect the broader economy? And that's really what some of this data will give us some guidance on.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if it's a change of tune for Indonesia's economy. Peter, thanks very much.
Thank you.